Hi, and welcome to episode 44, I had to look, of Girlfriends Knitting. My name is Carin. I go by Call Shirley on Plurk and Ravelry. And it's been a difficult week. Lots of bad weather, snow and ice, and in Mississippi that's not a good thing. But we got through that. Enjoyed a few snow days. We actually had school called off for 3 days. 2 of them partial days, 1 of them a full day, but Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we were home at least some for the snow each of those 3 days. And it was more ice than snow, especially on Tuesday. It was like someone took a water hose and sprayed everything down, and then it froze, and so you had an inch of ice on top of everything, which is dangerous, to say the least. Sometimes I think that fresh packed snow is easier. At least you can get some traction on snow, whereas with ice, you're not getting traction on ice. So that's what I have been dealing with this week. In general, the family is good. Thank you all for your continued support and love, and that has been wonderful. I'm wearing this shawl by Annette K18 that Amy got for me, so I'm enjoying those little special treats. Dawn sent me a shawl that I wear sometimes too, and those little things are special to me. So that's what I've been doing this week. I've actually been doing more spinning than knitting this week, and I did not bring my spinning to show you because it's just still 1 ply on a bobbin, and I didn't want to drag that up here. So I will show you that when it's finished yarn. It is a Corriedale roving that seems like just bits and pieces of a bunch of different rovings that I bought at Rhinebeck. I bought 8 ounces for $20, and it is awesome. And I've spun the first 4 ounces as a single ply. I'm going to spin the next 4 ounces as a single ply, and then ply them together to make a 2-ply yarn. That will, sorry for all the binging, I'm at my office, so my email goes off. So 2-ply yarn. I will have to spin 4 ounces together and make it 1 skein, and then do it again for my other skein because I don't have a bulky flyer. I only have a regular woolly winder. Loving my woolly winder. Loving spinning again. So that is something I am enjoying. I'm over the monogamy. Thank goodness that bug has passed my house. I had that bug for a few short days, and it was very scary for me. But I think I've recovered. As you will see, I do have a few objects on the needles. Nothing finished. The Tears of Bronze are still in timeout. That's the charcoal alpaca hat that I am making for Amy. It's still in timeout, has not been touched. The Rocky Coast is at the point where I need to divide for the sleeves. And because I have to put some stitches on a stitch marker, cast some stitches back on, there's just some finagling that needs to be done, some math that needs to be done. And I've been doing so much math at work this week, lots of data, that I just didn't want to deal with more data at home. So I have not messed with my Rocky Coast this week. So it looks exactly the same as it did last week. So I'm not even going to show you that. But I did cast on 3 new projects. So let's start with something you've been hearing a lot about on Ravelry and Plurk, which is the Jimmy Beans Wool Downton Abbey knit along. It's a mystery knit along. We have through Clue 2 out. I've only done half of Clue 1 because I really do want this to be, I'm only knitting on it while watching Downton Abbey. So when I watched the episode Sunday night, I got it out, cast on. Alright, so ignore the little fringe at the bottom. That is the provisional cast on edge. Let me see if I can get it closer here. It's got a rosebud lace panel and an eyelet panel. It's a free pattern, so I'm not giving away anything here. You can find it on Jimmy Bean's Wool blog if you're interested. I'm knitting it on my Knit Picks DPNs, size 2, with this gorgeous yarn. Oh, and that's a perfect representation of the color. It's mainly purple with these pops of sort of a cobalt blue and a burgundy. And I loved this yarn. This is the last of the yarn that my parents gave me for Christmas last year. And it is Schaefer yarn in the Nicole base. 80% merino, 20% nylon. Love this yarn. I'm having a blast working with it. And it is the series called Memorable Wild Women. And this color is Mae West. And I love that because she was the one who said, when I'm good, I'm very good, but when I'm bad, I'm better. And history isn't made by women who were good. I'm misquoting that, but you get the gist. So I loved this. Was the color that they picked out for me. Definitely my colors. As you can see, it's going to look good on me. The only thing I didn't tell you is what it is. It is Lady Violet's, or excuse me, Countess, the Dowager Countess Violet Crawley's gauntlets. Dinner gauntlets. So fingerless mitts, basically. And of course, Violet, he's got to have some purple, right? I'm pulling a Dawn there. You know, you got to have the yarn match the object. So this is only to be touched during Downton Abbey, of which I've gotten Amy hooked. And it was so awesome. I convinced her to watch the first episode. So we did. And she liked it. So I said, okay, well, let's watch episode 2. Now, this is season 1's episode 1. So then we watched episode 2, and then 3, and then 4. And then pretty soon we watched the whole first season. Then we watched the whole second season. And now we're, of course, this third season is out in the U.S. now. Some of you have already seen the third season being over there in the foreign lands to us. And I'm very jealous. But we just saw season 3's episode 2, and yay! Okay, so that's Mystery Knit Along. Check it out. I told you I was a participator, but I probably wasn't going to be participating in MKALs last week. You can't listen to what I say. I change my mind all the time. It's my prerogative. But I liked this one because, A, I wanted something to knit while I'm watching Downton Abbey. I love the idea of it being about Downton Abbey that I was knitting. Number 2, I wanted to use that yarn. And number 3, it's a very informal knit along. The pattern is free. There is a yarn for the knit along that was dyed, especially for the knit along, that is gorgeous, called Christmas at Downton. But I'm in the process of trying to use up my stash and knit from stash. I had the perfect yarn in the stash. So it just fit. And it's very laid back, very relaxed, just on the blog, on the blog and on Ravelry, back and forth where you are and how you're doing in the knit along. So I loved that. So that's project 1 that I cast on. Then project 2, which I have done the most on because it's just a very addictive knit. If you have not knit this one, it's Wingspan. Hold on. I'm always in the middle of a row. So let me see if I can, there we go. It's my rainbow span. So I'm calling it Span the Rainbow. But again, it's the Wingspan pattern. And I believe the Wingspan pattern's a free pattern online. And you've got to go check out the pictures of the finished objects for Wingspan because the variations that people did are amazing. I am using my Xiaogu size 4 which I love these chalky red lace. I really do. And the yarn I'm using is a rainbow yarn. This is from the pencil roving that I bought at Rhinebeck. And I spun it single ply. Got 375 yards of a pretty even fingering weight because it was pencil roving, so it was easy to just, you didn't have to worry about consistency as much because it pretty much stays consistent on its own, being pencil roving. And I'm just adoring the subtle change of color from one color to the next. Loving it. So this is just a very addictive knit. As you can see, I've made quite a bit of progress on it. It's just oh, I want to show you something I learned. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Do you see on the edge how it looks like a crochet chain? Yeah, you can see that. So this is a slip stitch edge. But if you're not careful about the direction in which you move the yarn and slip the stitch, it won't look like that pretty little crochet chain. All right, maybe the orange won't be as hard to see. Well, I did it right. No, I didn't, up here. So do you see at the top how it looks like little pearl bumps? And then about halfway down it changes to that pretty crochet chain. I was slipping the yarn, but I was putting the yarn behind as I slipped instead of putting it between the needles as I slipped the stitch. So be careful when you are doing a slip stitch edge on a scarf that you put the yarn between the needles as you slip it instead of pulling it around to the back, because if you pull it around to the back you get that sort of pearl bump edge, where if you slide the yarn between the needles you get that pretty chain, crochet chain look to the edge. So something I learned. Did I rip it back out? Obviously not. It's not something that's going to disturb me. It may disturb others. That's why it's yarn, we can rip it out. I'm not ripping it. Last thing is the Skew socks. And I'm 90% sure that this is a free pattern, but I'm not 100% sure. There's nothing on this front page that's pattern, so it's just the picture. Notice how they kind of swirl. And I'm going to talk more about heels later, but these are another form of heel design. And this pattern is by Lana Holden, who I'm going to show you her info. There she is. She is a mathematician, which, you know, being a mathematician, I just gotta love. And love this. Another friend of mine pointed out this picture. I'm going to kind of bend it so you're not seeing, just in case I'm wrong about the freebie thing. Look, it's the... Okay, so you see the calculus books and the discrete and combinatorics? I thought it was up there. You may not be able to see it, but the book right, maybe with my finger moving in the right direction. Bam! There! That book. That's that book. Different edition, but math teachers all have these books. These are like the college math books right there. I love it. Love it, love it. Okay, so what am I making it out of? I am making it out of some awesome Gnome Acres. Gnome Acres is the place to be. I don't know why it just came into my head. So, Amanda, Gnome Acres in the candy cane colorway. Bam! Red and white. What did you expect with candy cane? But I must say, on her site page, it's in the skein, and so in my mind, I pictured self-striping. A hunk of white, a hunk of red, a hunk of white, a hunk of red. She doesn't say that anywhere, that that's what it will look like. Let me clarify. This is not an error on Amanda's part. She doesn't say anywhere that that's what it's going to look like. That was my assumption. You know what happens. Okay. It's not. I still like it. Not crazy about that flash of white right there. So I may try to make that the bottom of the foot. But this is the beginning. Does it look like a sock? No, not at all. But for those of you who have knit the Skew pattern, you'll know that it sits on the foot like this. So this is the toe. This side is straight. See, and this is the big toe. And then it curves down. Remember when we talked about toes, I talked about how if you only increased on one side, you would get this effect. And so then you have sort of this on the bias that you knit down, and then you kind of curve up and around to make the heel, and then go on the bias up the leg. These are Mom's birthday present. Her name is Candy. Candy came. And just plain stocking knit, I wasn't thrilled. It just didn't sing to me. But knit on the bias, I'm liking it. So I'm really pleased with the pattern I chose. I had started off with just do a plain stocking knit, self-stripe, and then realized quickly that that wasn't going to work with this yarn. So I pulled out all my sock patterns, and Amy helped me go through and pick out this pattern, and I'm very pleased with the results. All right, check notes. Okay, I wrote down my goals for 2013. They're not resolutions, they're goals. Fitness related. I want to run a 5K. My hair's bothering me and I can see myself on the screen. Sorry. I want to run a 5K and run the whole thing. So I did a 5K last year, but I didn't run the whole thing. I ran the beginning of it and I ran the end of it, but I walked most of the middle. So this year I want to run the whole thing. I think I may have gotten Mom convinced to do it with me. My brother is trying to convince me to do a half marathon. I said, let's, walk before you can run, so to speak. But we're gonna do a 5K. So that's one of the things that I am going to start training for. It helps if you actually start training. The other goal is I went through and organized all of my stash and realized that I don't have very much stash. I really don't. I pulled out all of my nice sock yarn and decided that these are the 4 socks that are going to be made next. The very next one to get cast on. And all but one of these is going to be for me, because this is the year of selfish knitting. It's the party socks. Stocking Knit Zombies. And I'm going to use Megan's pattern, Partying It Up, Getting Down. I don't remember the name. But Partying It Up socks. So, my party socks. I love the colorway name. How come you didn't tell me I look like a crazy birthday cake in this shirt? I love it. So this is by 716 Sock, and I can already tell just from holding the cake of yarn, I'm gonna love it. And so as you can see, I've already wound it up. It came in this cute little cupcake box, and I've already wound it up. It didn't come wound, I did that. The next that will go on the needles after that is my sweet gift from Flancers, which is Gnome Acres in the Hermione colorway. Haven't quite decided on the pattern for this yet, but we'll see. Then some yarn I got at Rhinebeck. I've never used this base. It's Into the World, and so I'm very excited. Everybody raves about Into the World, and I haven't used any yet. This is the Gwendir. I may be saying that wrong. Color bleh, in the Gloucester, which is 80/20 merino nylon. I just love the blues and greens. And the blue kind of fades into a purple. And then it's a really dark spruce green that fades into more olive than to a yellow. It's not as bright in real life as it is on the camera. It's more of a pale yellow. Love it. And then last, I am going to knit a friend of mine my first pair of sparkle socks. And I love the name of this color. It's Sterling Estate Green. And it is a Kramer Sterling Silk and Silver. 63% merino, 20% silk, 15 nylon, 2% silver. Isn't that awesome? So that's one of the other socks. So those are the 4 socks that are coming up. I'm also going to knit the crosswords at the coffee shop. I have the yarn picked out for it as well. And those are sort of the things that are coming up. I will also be teaching a knitting class here at my community college in February. So I'm working on gathering supplies and things like that for that. Love that. Then big announcement. This weekend there will be Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day stitch markers in the Etsy shop. So go to girlfriendsknitting.etsy.com and there is a coupon code. You ready for the coupon code? LOVE13. You get 13% off for Valentine's 2013. Now 13% off seems like a weird number. But what do we care if it's a weird number? It's not like we have to do the math, right? The computer will do the math for you. But you get 13% off. Yay! So check out the Etsy shop this weekend. I'll plurk when I update the shop with the Valentine's stitch markers. They're all made, but I haven't taken pictures and put them up on Etsy yet. So that will happen this weekend. They are darling. And some super cute polymer clay stitch markers that Chelsea made. Who knew she was a clay artist? Oh my gosh, the fruit, I don't even know if I'm going to put it on the shop. The fruit that she made was so amazing. It may be mine. I don't know. It's awesome. So that is big announcement. Now, for the last segment, let's talk about heels. So I'm kind of been on this sock kick since I learned how to knit socks. So I'm going to start back at the beginning. Hold on. Yes, it's sweet tea. Don't judge. So let's start back at the beginning. A year and a half ago, I took a sock knitting class from the one and only Laura Linneman at our local yarn shop, because Laura is local to me. Leslie used to be local to me. And Laura does teach a lot of classes at our local yarn shop, which is an amazing shop. And I haven't been there lately, and I miss those guys terribly. I've got to get back up there. But took a sock class from Laura. I had a fabulous time. And I knit this lovely pair of socks. This is my very first sock. It has been touched by Laura. It may have even been knit on by Laura, because in the process of making this lovely sock, my dog ate the toe out of the sock. Genius that she is. She cut out the toe, picked up stitches around, and showed me how to re-knit the toe. That's how awesome she is. So this is my very first sock. What I learned was socks are big tubes because you're just knitting up your leg, right? And tube socks, it's just a big tube. So you start a circle and you knit in a circle until it's the length you want, and then you bind off. But typically we don't want an open tube if we want a sock, so you got to close the end up somehow. And unless you do want a tube sock, it needs to turn, right? Our feet turn out from our leg. So the sock's got to turn. That's why it's called the heel turn. Well, the first heel I learned was a Wendy Johnson heel with gusset. So a gusset is where you increase, and it's going to be hard to see those stitches. You increase right here along the foot, and then you turn the heel by doing short rows back and forth until you've reduced back down, and now you've turned the heel, and then you can go back up the leg. So this is a sock with a gusset. This isn't a short row heel, but you use short rows to make the heel. That can kind of get confusing. Now, this is a self-striping yarn, as you can tell. Notice the heel. This one just magically worked out. I did not plan it. This is my very first sock. I was not planning this. Where at the turn, it magically changed to the red. That was just pure knitting magic. So you can really see the turn on that heel really well because of the change in color. But most of the time, it's going to cause something funny to happen. So, if you use the Afterthought Heel by the wonderful Laura Linneman, what it does, as you can see, stripes go up the foot, then they sort of circle the heel, and they go up the leg. So this heel is an Afterthought heel. You've probably seen it on many podcasts where you basically make a tube, you put in a row of waste yarn so that you can then go back, open the sock up, open up that tube at that point. See? You're opening up the tube at that point and knitting basically what would be another toe, right? If I'm holding the sock like this, you can't tell if that's the toe or the heel. It's actually the heel. Leslie, I think it was Leslie and not Laura that did the video, did an awesome video of how to do the Afterthought heel. And I will link that in some show notes, probably on Ravelry, so check it out over there. So that's another way. Basically, you just knit the tube and then go back in, right, Afterthought, and put in the heel. When it comes to self-striping socks, this keeps the striping pattern really well. The Mickey Mouse socks that I just did for Amy, I used that Afterthought heel. Amy loves the way that this heel fits her foot. I also really like the way it works with self-striping. Amy likes self-striping. So most of the time when I'm knitting Amy a sock, I use self-striping yarn, short, cuff, Afterthought heel. That's her favorite. Sorry, so if I walked in, I was just checking to see who it was and if I needed to pause. Heels fit differently too. So as you're trying out all these different heel variations, you're going to want to pick one that fits your foot. I love the next one. The next one I'm going to show you is the short row heel. So you're knitting along, you get to the heel, and you start knitting short rows, and then you increase them back out, and then you're back to knitting in the round. So these are my knee-high socks, and I did a short row heel. I actually learned short rows when I was working on the Racing Hearts. The Racing Heart socks with Pretty, our very own Pretty of Pretty Knitty Designs, so you need to check out her blog. But she likes the short row heel. She used that heel in our pattern, and so I looked up a bunch of tutorials on it, watched videos on it. Her directions were amazing. And so I learned how to do the short row heel, and I've just become addicted to it. However, there are some variations on that. Pretty likes doing a double wrap. So on your first through the short rows, you're wrapping the stitches. When you're expanding them back out, you're wrapping them again as you expand back out. I don't typically wrap mine the second time. I have learned to keep it tight enough. You can see that there is going to be some small holes, but I've learned how to keep my yarn tight enough where those holes are small enough they don't bother me. Again, notice that it is going to do strange things with your stripes. So if you are using self-striping, it is going to make it look weird at the heel. For this one in particular, I liked how it did. Again, this was just knitting magic, not anything I planned, but I liked the way it looked. Lastly, from what I have personally knit and tried out, and these socks look horrendous because they're my favorite pair of socks and I wear them all the time. I don't like how the heel fits, but I just love these socks, and it's soft and squishy, and so these are my throw on and knit type socks. These are my Hermione Everyday socks in yarn that I hand dyed. They were knit top down, and they have a heel flap. Where I'm going to direct you to for the heel flap is actually the Yarn Harlot, so Stephanie Pearl McPhee. Her basic sock recipe is awesome, and it basically says all the things I'm saying right now. You have to have a leg, you have to have a heel, you have to turn that heel, go down the foot, bind off the toe. There's your sock. And so she kind of breaks that basic process down into how you do each of those parts. So with a heel flap, when you get to where you are ready for the heel, you simply stop working on one of the two needles, stop working half the round, and just start knitting a flat piece, a flap, down. There are 10 million variations on what that flat piece should look like. Eye of partridge, straight stocking knit, slip stitch patterns. You can do all kind of fancy things on that little flap of fabric. Then you pick the stitches up along the side of the fabric and start knitting down. So it is going to create, once again, a gusset. So if you're knitting toe up, the gusset's going to be where you're increasing. Top down, the gusset's going to be where you're decreasing. So that's going to be your heel flap. Very common. You'll see it in a lot of different patterns, and you'll simply see them switching up how that particular flap is made. Lastly, the heel I'll mention that I have not actually tried, and I may try it on one of my next socks, is the Sweet Tomato Heel by Cat Bordhi. It's similar to a short row heel, but there are some twists to it, and there are some excellent videos by Cat Bordhi on how to do that. The whole idea is basically you've got to turn the sock. So however you figure out how to get that sock to turn is going to make your heel. Someone else who you will hear talk about a bunch of different variations in heels is Carin from Round the Twist. She's done the Sweet Tomato Heel, I believe. She does a crystal heel, which is a type of Afterthought heel. She mentions that. She mentions heel flaps quite a bit and how she varies them. So if you watch that podcast, when she's doing socks, you'll hear her talking, you'll hear her talking about different heel designs as she's working through her socks. So there's a basic overview of heels. So I hope that that has inspired you to do some more sock knitting of your own. And I'm not going to talk any about fitness this week other than, like I said, to tell you that my goal is to run a 5K, but that you have to actually be training for that in order to be able to do it, and I haven't been. So I need to get on that. And I'll see you next week. Bye.